What's up, Line Golf Academy members? Happy Friday evening, and I hope you're planning to play some golf. If not, hopefully you played some golf previously, and I actually played golf today, and we want to talk about some golf swing analysis today based on that survey I put out on the channel. It was either let's look at golf swings, let's watch some golf, let's do a Q&A about golf, and guess what? It was a tie, three-way tie. So we're going to try and do all three in this live stream. So bear with me. We're going to have to change some screens every now and then. I got something lined up. Freddie Couples versus John Daly at Crosswater Club, 1999 Shells, Wonderful World of Golf. So that should be a lot of fun to watch. I don't know if we'll get through it all today. We might start midway and just watch the back nine or something like that. But I wanted to bring up this. This is me actually swinging today. And this is a good thing I want to talk to you about for golf swings and feel versus real and what technically looks good. And it doesn't really matter if it looks good. It's what produces results. Now, one thing that I want you to get across is as you develop, the age that you start this game really makes a difference, because if you started this game when you were 5, 6 years old, the clubs that you used really dictate the design of your golf swing. And my swing is case in point. I got Jim Furyk up here too, because I know some of you wanted me to do Jim Furyk, so I'll do Jim Furyk real quick here too as well. But when you are learning this game of golf, clubs today, junior club equipment is so fine-tuned. It's so much better. The kids slot the club automatically. It's weighted correctly. There's a club company out there called Epic Golf that actually has weight systems for the club itself. So it slots in perfectly. I give students these clubs and they have beautiful little golf swings, and it's nothing to go crazy about. Go back 30, 40, 50 years. My dad cut off persimmon-headed 3-wood for me as my first club, and I was 4 years old. Now, I don't know if you've ever swung a persimmon-headed 3-wood, but it is extremely heavy. So I want you to look at these two swings, because the one on the right is the one where I'm trying to get technically correct. And just watch these swings. We're going to watch them over and over again. So look at the one on the right side. This is the one where I'm focusing on the technical positions. Technically, visually, it looks so much better, the one on the right. The one on the left is more of my neurological system swing. You see that flying right elbow, and this is stemmed back to when I was a kid swinging those very heavy clubs, and I've just learned how to use those, and it's just stayed with me in my neurological system as an adult. But let's just break this down, because it's pretty interesting when you look at this. So if we go to the start of the swing, you can see the setups, not much difference. Obviously, there were two different swings, one right after the other. The one on the right side hit first, the one in the water. You can see the ball kind of veer off in the water. The one on the left side is where I just, man, screw this. Let me just go back to what feels right. Let me get that flying right elbow and just work on my timing. So setup-wise, it's about the same. You can see the if we do the Barney Purple, we got to bring Barney Purple out on the live stream. From the arches of the heels up, this is the most important thing to look at when you're looking at your golf swing. Arches of the heels up. You can see how they're both centered. Now, that is the key thing. As long as you are centered, you will be able to swing around your centers. When you're not centered, that's when you start to fight your weighting front and back. So setup, they look about the same. But let's take a look at this as we take that club back. You can see the one on the left, one on the right. They're both riding out that lower plane line pretty nicely. You can see the club head is pretty parallel to my spine angle. The one on the right side, we can see the same sort of thing. So you see this, the takeaway, the initial takeaway has always been about the same. But what I've been working on is trying to get to that secondary plane line more efficiently on the right side, even though I towed it when the water just didn't feel good. But let's take a look at the top of the swing, because you'll notice two completely different top positions. So one on the left side, the flying right elbow, right? This is what Jack Nicklaus, I'm not saying I'm Jack Nicklaus, but this is what Jack Nicklaus would do. He'd get that flying right elbow to help him get a little bit more leverage. The problem with this is now you can see how steep this is going to become, where my one on the right side, at least that left elbow is right on that secondary plane line. So my path of my hands are going to be a little bit more down and slot a lot easier on the right side, where the path of my hands here on the left side, look at where it's going to go. I mean, it's actually going to work back towards my centeredness, which is not a good thing. It's very hard to time. But you'll take a look at the path. So let's look at the one on the left. See how my arms pull straight down? So it's working down that predetermined path. The one on the right side, it's also working down that predetermined path. So they're both looking pretty decent, but take a look at the slotting. So the one on the left side, let's pull up these numbers here. Let's give me these lines, and we're going to look at the slotting because the slotting is what's a little bit troublesome here. So you can see how much above that golf ball is. The one on the right side, it's almost at that golf ball. Now, visually, the one on the right side, man, it's looking pretty good. So far, I've met all the positions and it feels decent. When I struck the golf ball, it didn't feel decent. But looking at this, it's like, hey, there's very little to go wrong. You look at the left side here as we drop that down to the slot, you can see my hands are now feeling this, and they're going to feel that club head trying to pull down to that secondary plane line or the primary plane line. The club head is always going to veer down to that primary plane line, specifically with guys that have been playing for a long time. Right side, you can see it's already in that primary plane line. So things are looking so much better on the right side. As we strike down to the golf ball, you can see positions here. It's a little bit tighter on the right side. There's less room to work with, and we can tell. Let's pull out these red lines here. So you can see the spacing on the left side. Look at the gap I have between my forearms, which some might say that's bad because now you have to right the ship and you really have to get your arms to be involved. Right side of the screen looks okay. It's a lot tighter, which means that there's less of manipulation of the hands and arms. And as we get down to impact zone, look at my club head. It's twisting open. These clubs, man, I had to do it. I had to get rid of my steel shafts and go to some flimsy, regular shaft. So that is actually making contact a little bit toey, and it spins open. So it's not necessarily a bad contact. One on the left actually went really well. One on the right hit definitely in the toe. You can see that toe flaring open more. But after impact, look how much more the hands are now involved on the left side. So that left side, look at the hands really flick over. You see the path is a little bit wider, meaning it's going slightly to the right. But look at all this area that I have versus the left side. My hands are exiting a lot lower. So I thought this would be kind of interesting to look at because you can see it gets even the pass. I mean, look at this. It goes back to the top plane line. Here it's kind of in between the two plane lines. So visually, if I were to go to a golf coach or if one of you were helping me with the golf swings and you look at this, you go, man, the one on the right just looks so much better. There's less things going on. It's simple. It's back and through. But look at the contact. Watch where the ball goes. The ball just veers off to the right, push, block, slice right in the water. One on the left side, man, it's all about timing. So don't be confused with timing because timing is everything in the golf swing. Specifically, if you're playing for a long time, you need to get timing involved or else you're going to be in trouble. So I thought that'd be kind of cool to bring up. But let's look at Jim Furyk because I think this is a cool one to watch. So let's pull this up here. So Jim, this is a slow motion swing. Jim has an interesting motion. Now, Jim, I am sure he played this game when he was a kid, when he was very young. And I know that he is a son of, I believe it's a PGA Pro. So he probably was given clubs back when he was a child. And Jim was born in 1959. So when he was a kid, he was probably given clubs in the 60s. You can imagine the type of club he was given in the 60s. If I was given Persimmon 3-wood in the 80s, in the 60s, he was probably given some heavy, heavy stuff to work with. And that is what created this motion. It created a motion that's very upright because as you're younger and you're developing with your clubs, just like I showed you in my video of me swinging, you are going to have a funky looking swing. And you've seen less and less of these funky swings in today's PGA Tour and LPGA Tour, top of the elites, collegiates. You don't see this many funky swings, and it's all because of the clubs that they learned to use when they were children. If it's very heavy, you've got to learn to pick that club up. There's no way to swing or else you're going to be very flat. So we see two extremes. We see either a very flat swing from a child because the club was too heavy, so they learn to be laid off and then figure out a way to get down to impact. But this is the more common one. We see a very steep swing where the child had to learn to just pick up the club and then slot it back down. So you can see Jim does a really good job of sliding it down. Now, keep in mind, this guy was top of the world for decades. I mean, to be able to do that at that elite level, your timing has got to be perfect. So we see a lot of body rotation down at impact. But let's just take a look at this plane work because it's really cool to see. And let's do it in red so we can see this. Hopefully you guys can hear me, by the way. This is not just empty. Okay, so we see that plane where look how wide that plane is. There's a lot of space here. That's because he's standing very close. You see how tight his hands are. His hands are almost rubbing on his knees and his thighs. So he is going to have to figure out how to pull that club up. If he turns, his hands are going to pull right into these thighs. So he has to figure out a way to maneuver that. So let's put a back brace line here and let's change the colors. We got to go Barney purple. So let's pull this Barney purple right through the spine as best as we can. And let's just look at the centeredness. So if you guys watch my videos, you know I'm a huge fan of where the center is. So look at that's the center. Arch of the heel, straight up to the sky. I mean, look at how much of his waist is behind the center line. So this is a very unusual setup, to say the least, specifically where his centeredness is. But take a look at the way he takes that club back. It's still right on plane. So he's figured out how to hinge the, you can see that grip is pretty weak. He's figured out how to hinge his club and get some upper body rotation. And his legs aren't really rotating much because they can't, because if he rotates his leg, it's going to mess with his centeredness. So he's learned how to keep a stable lower body and pull that club straight up. Now look at this. That is just it's pretty interesting. And what's cool about this is, look, from this point on, we're going to put a line up. Watch how the club actually works to the right of that line. You don't really see that at all. If anything, when somebody has a very steep angle, their club moves left of this line. So to make him move right, this is going to show you how much of this looping he's learned how to do. So if we do the triangle check right about here, so this triangle check's about as obscure as you can imagine. So there. So this triangle is the other way. So if he were to just go ahead and stop his backswing there, he would have to figure out how to reroute it or manipulate the hands, but he doesn't. He keeps going back, and this going back, you can see as he goes back, this is where the rerouting starts. So if you can imagine as a kid, if he was 5 years old swinging with heavy persimmons, you can just see the weighting of the club falling back down, and then his neurological system developed around that, and he learns how to just manipulate this. But now he's got to get his body out of the way. So we see a lot of rotation. Look at the whole body. Whole body's turning to get out of the way. So now, if you look at that right elbow, it's almost on his back. That's how much his body is outracing his hands. So some might say this is disconnected. Obviously, in today's age, it is disconnected, but it is not for him, because you take a look at where that club is. It's fallen perfectly in the slot. So as it drops down, look, it doesn't veer off from that slot at all. It is just like a robot from this point on. So here comes more rotation as he strikes a golf ball. The tilting and the turning of the shoulders now help the club stay on plane. So it's a combination of tilting the right shoulder down and also rotating to make sure the hands are out in front of the chest as he comes on through. He strikes it, and look at this. Look at the whole body. The whole body is clear all these lines up. The whole body is facing the target, which is very, very unusual for the top in the world. We usually see them a little bit more static, a little bit more controlled. If you look at Rory right at this position, his shoulders are closed. His shoulders are pointing this way, where Furyk, they're pointing the other way. So this is a really good thing for you to see, because just because your swing is a little bit funky doesn't mean you can't repeat it. So make sure that if you do have an obscure motion in your golf swing, as long as you can repeat it, it doesn't really matter. And golf balls don't necessarily have to go straight. You know, it's very hard to hit a straight golf ball. All golf balls have motion. They either curve right or they curve left. One of the hardest shots to hit is a straight shot. So as long as you can get the ball to curve consistently one way, then you can play it. The problem is your misses. Now, this swing, if it's not timed correctly, could give you such an extreme miss that you will rope hook it or block it out. And that is where you cannot play. So if you have a swing that's giving you such obscene misses, where it's 20 yards right or 20 yards left, how do you know where your misses are? You can't. It's impossible to play at least some competitive golf without that. Sorry, something just popped up. So you have to just figure out where your misses are, what's causing that miss. Is it a compensatory motion? And if it is, how can you limit that compensatory motion so it's not so timing oriented? So the key is timing oriented. Jim Furyk hits a lot of golf balls because his swing is timing oriented. If you were with me at the start of my live stream, you saw my swing, very timing oriented, because of when I was a kid, I had to do the same sort of motion that he does. If you look at Vijay Singh, how many golf balls does he hit every single day because his swing is very timing oriented. Vijay Singh's right hand comes off the club at impact because he has to flip it back around so much. Very timing oriented. If you look at Ben Hogan, very timing oriented because of that right hand action. So if you have a timing oriented swing, expect your misses to be big, but just figure out a way to be not so timing oriented and go get a lesson somehow. So I got one more video to show you here, and then we'll start watching some golf. This is one of my instructors at one of my academies. Now, this guy hits the ball probably, I'm no slouch. I can hit it 290, 300 when I really get into one. This guy can hit it 80 to 90 yards past me, even when I get into one. So this guy can hit it 380, 390. I played it in the desert here. I took him out to the desert. I forget the golf course, but it's par 5. And he hit it so far. The caddy that was with us you just couldn't believe it. This guy had driver wedge, and the hole was like 590. So keep that in mind. But watch this swing, and you'll see the amount of power this guy gets. Obviously, he's a big man. I think he's 6'1", 6'2", just a big boy, farmer strength. But let's take a look at this plane work because this is where he gets his power from. Because his club head speed and my club head speed, he's probably a few miles faster than me. But the reason why he hits it 80 yards further than me is what he does with this club head. And this is what most people are trying to do, but very few can do it. And this is what they call that shallowing effect. So if you take a look at the top of his swing, nice high hands. All long golfers hit the long drivers hit nice high hands. So we take a look at where his triangle is. So if you're at home and you have something like this, look at where your triangle is and look at how you set up to your triangle. The key thing for him is making sure his top position, I'm going to draw that straight down first. And if we go back to the start of the swing here, we'll see where that centeredness is. Okay, so the key thing for golfers is you try not to get your hands. If your hands are high, you need your hands to be pretty close to your centeredness. And they get pretty close. You see that the lower plane line, the spine angle line, where that little X meets. So his hands get pretty close to that. So that's the goal. As long as you get your hands up in that region, you're fine. If they get too far up here, it's going to be tough. If they get too far down here for distance, it's going to be tough because you're too connected. You need freedom. You need width. So as he comes on down, watch his hands. His hands go straight down. I mean, this is just textbook. Drops in the slot. Now his right elbow is connected to his right side. He's rerouted himself. He stood up as well. So if you take a look at his new spine angle, let's draw this in green. He stood up and away from the golf ball, which will also help you lower your plane. So his goal is to get this club head below the plane by the time he gets down to parallel, because what he's trying to do is swing up on the ball, something I struggle with, and I don't think I will ever be able to hit up on the ball. I think I swing down 4 or 5 degrees, which is horrible. My spin rate is ridiculous. Every now and then I can catch one, but it's nowhere near. So if you're looking at your swing at home and you want to try and get some distance, it's not necessarily club head speed that matters. It's not the aggression that you swing it. It's where's that path of the club head. And how do you learn to swing slightly up? Even if you can neutralize it and get it to 1 degree down, that's better than 3 or 4 degrees down. The ideal for you is 1 to 2 degrees up because that allows you to reduce the spin rate and increase your launch angle. I would imagine his spin rate is probably low 2000s, and he probably swings up in the ball 3 or 4 degrees. That's how he gets his distance. So take a look at that club head. The club head's falling right on the plane, and it stays below. So look at the hands. So you see the hands go from this point on, the hands are going to be going up. So now you know he's swinging up on the ball. And the reason he hits it so hard too is look how his body is staying relatively square. It's not flying open. He doesn't try and rotate his body so much that's a misconception I want you to think about, is you don't have to rotate your body. Power comes from conserving that angle. Now, the angle between your wrist here. Now, if you rotate so much, it's hard to conserve your angle when you're rotating this way because things work outward. And the more you rotate, the more pressure is going to be on that hand to release because you just can't hold it long enough. So the key is how do you pull your hands down. You can stand up a little bit to help you get your club behind you. And then from this point on, right here is when he's going to try to rotate and push up. So this is the key thing is pushing up. You see every long driver push up. Look at the feet. They go from squatted to up right there. So that is how you deliver the power effectively. You don't over rotate, you don't overturn. I see so many people on the range just getting to the top and just firing at the top. And that is going to destroy your motions. You have to learn to go down and back up, just like you're jumping at a golf ball. So I thought this would be kind of cool for you to watch as well. And if you're at home, look at the exit path of your hands. You know you're doing a pretty good job. If as you jump up, watch the hands come out much higher than they were at the top. So we go at the top here, right? If we go to the let's do it this way to make more sense. So there's the lower plane line, and this is the upper plane line. Okay, so if you have high hands, you better hope you have high hands when you finish, and they go right to where they were. So if you have high hands and you finish and your hands are low, that means your hands are too involved or you've turned too much. So this is a combination of the tilting and turning. But for him, you take a look at the tilting, he increases his tilt perfectly. So it's about tilting, not turning enough, pushing down and pushing back up. That'll help you get your up to swing up on the ball to reduce your spin and increase your launch rate. So hopefully that makes sense to you, whoever's here. You guys want to watch some golf? Because I do. Let's take a look. Let me see if I can find a way how to do this. All right. We've got a doozy here. We've got Freddie Couples versus John Daly. And this was in 1999. So let's keep this in mind. Freddie Couples was born in 59. That'll make him 65 today and 40 in this video. So for all my 40-year-olds out there, you compare his motion with yours. John Daly was born in 1966, makes him 58 today. Man, I feel old talking about this. And he is now 34 in this video. So what we're going to do is let's find the back nine, because this is a long video. Let's see if we can find what hole they on here. I don't know what hole this is, but let's just start here. In the comments here or somewhere, you know how to get a hold of me. I want to try and do more of this swing analysis stuff, but with your guys' videos. I think it'll be cool. Maybe every Friday, if you want to send me your videos, we can pop it up here. We can talk about your videos. If you have any questions on the on your swing, on the golf swing itself, let me know, because I really want to do that. I think, did you just say 197 with a 5-iron at 40 years old? Yeah, that's that grass for you. That thick grass will just twist your club. But for those of you who don't know, Boom Boom, Freddie Couples, he could bomb the ball. So this is pretty cool. It's like the big dogs going at it. Now, if you guys don't know, John Daly hates to practice. He's one of those guys that just plays golf. He dusts off his clubs before he goes in a round of golf and just takes one swing and says, that's my golf swing, and just goes to the tee. So this guy has so much talent. And even Tiger said to him, and also said to everybody, you can go look it up. Tiger said, man, if I had John Daly's talent, I would have won 30 majors, because that just shows that talent and work ethic combined. But if you can get away with talent, but you need some work ethic. But I don't believe it. I think he actually had work ethic to put him in a position. But once he got there, man, just ride the talent, I guess. Oh, I got to see this. Winning never gets old, golf tip. Fool you. That's, most of us try and do that shot, and we shouldn't really do that shot. What you should try to do is hit it to the middle of the green and don't get too cute and take your medicine, get out. So 680 elevation, it's about 10%. So it's still 620 sea level. That's still pretty long. I wonder if the guys on tour today, they should be able to reach that. Some of those guys. What's interesting is I don't see those balls getting much roll. I don't know if it's because it's Oregon, it's so wet up there, or they just don't roll. 114, what is it, 680? So that's 570. So that's still pretty good. If that hole was 570, but then the sea level. What do you think? You think Couples is going to choke? Last night we watched Couples and Watson, and Couples had a 4-shot lead at one point, won it by 2. So it was a little bit of a comeback. I wonder if I haven't seen this one, if they